Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first edition, and hopefully not the last, of Ask the Editor. It's Prem Tucker here, Zeteo's political correspondent, soon to be joined by a few other people, which we'll talk about soon. And of course, we're joined by the all-star, the man himself, Mehdi Hasan. Mehdi,
Thank
how you
you.
doing today?
I'm good,
How you
Prem. Good
feeling?
morning. I'm looking forward to this. Normally, I'm the one asking the question, so it's good that we've switched roles and that you're going to put me on the spot every Monday morning. We talk about the news, we talk about what we're up to. So I'm looking forward to questions from you and from our subscribers in the chat.
It's going to be just as adversarial as your appearances on Piers Morgan, I think. That's what I was told.
I've always seen you, Prem, as a future Piers Morgan in the making.
Yeah, as in just remaining pretty mum while you and an IDF spokesperson go at each other.
Yeah,
That's
just sit
that's my role.
silently, have a cup of tea, just don't say anything, and then jump in at the end and say both sides.
All love, all love. But we do have some big news that I think I want to start off with at the top, which is some of you may have seen an article in Semaphore yesterday. And if you haven't, we have some very exciting news about some people that are going to be joining us soon and expanding our political team. Maddie, I'll let you describe some of these hires in more detail. I'll just say personally that I'm super pumped about the people that are joining us. I think we're building something that I'm thankful to be a part of, and I'm thankful that we get to build something that you guys deserve, which is much better media coverage, especially from Washington, D.C. But Mehdi, something a lot of people always talk to me about is what is Zateo in terms of what is the goals of it, what's the vision, the aspiration, the ambition. It seems to be much more than just the Mehdi Hasan show, which is great, even though that's already such a good baseline. But I want to know what gets you up all the time. What is your North Star? Because my parents always tell me, man, this Maddie's always doing something. He's on some show all the time. He's doing this and that and the other thing. What is he building? So tell us, what do these hires represent?
I like how your parents say positively, man, he's always on some show. I hear the same line from my wife, but it's not in a positive tone, I can assure you. You're always on some show. It is, I do a lot, unfortunately, as do you. So look, I've said this before, when we launched this over a year ago, nearly a year and a half ago, we could have launched this as the Mehdi Hasan Network, like Tucker Carlson, the Tucker Carlson Network. That was never the goal. The goal was to build something beyond me, build a progressive media institution, a movement, something that will endure, something that can grow, something that can last. If, God forbid, I'm run over by a bus tomorrow, it carries on without me. And that was the goal, and that's what we're heading towards. And so we brought in a bunch of contributors who, the Bassem Youssefs, the Naomi Kleins, the Cynthia Nixons, the Owen Joneses, the Diana Butus, the Fatima Butos, all of whom have been amazing and helped us build up our global and American profile. And then we hired one reporter, one full-time reporter, and that was you. Last summer, and it was a great hire, and people love what you've brought to Zeteo. You've broken some of the biggest stories out there. You broke the man. I still remember I was sitting on a plane in Florida coming back from another one of my innumerable events that I do, and it was at 6 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, and you were texting me saying, I've heard about this student, this green card holder who's just been taken. And I was like, yeah, go for it, break the story. And it was the Mahmoud Khalil story that you broke. But you've been doing that on your own. And A, we wanted to give you some support and help. B, we wanted to show that we are not just a hot take factory. A lot of the new media outlets, a lot of independent journalists are all just about opinion journalism. Zeteo, from the very beginning, we launched our documentary strands. We just did a documentary this year, as you know, Prem, Who Killed Shireen, which exposed the Israeli soldier who killed Shireen Abu Akleh, something even the American government could not or did not do. So we've always been about more than just opinion. We love opinion. I'm an opinion journalist by trade. We love opinion. We love commentary. We love analysis. We love context. We love history. But we also want to do original reporting, original journalism, investigative journalism. And so we have the documentaries, and we want to own the American political space. You know, I know, everyone watching knows, American politics right now is crazy. And Zeteo wants to be at the heart of that action. And so we are hiring Asawin Subsang and Andrew Perez from Rolling Stone magazine. Quite a big get there. You know, Rolling Stone, they're leaving Rolling Stone because they have faith in what we are building here in Zeteo. What you and I have built, what the people watching have helped us build. And they're joining us at the end of the month to bolster our political team. We're also going to be hiring a breaking news reporter. So we're quadrupling down on the midterms and the election that's coming in 2028 if Donald Trump lets us have one. We are getting ready for all of that. We're bolstering our DC politics, our American political coverage. We already do so much on the Middle East and on Gaza, but we really want to cover the rise of authoritarianism and fascism here in the home of the world superpower. And I think that is very important for us. We're also bringing in Peter Rothpletz as a contributor. He's a young up-and-coming writer I worked with at MSNBC. He's going to help me launch a daily newsletter, a morning political newsletter for progressives. Right now, those of you in the US watching know there's a Politico Playbook newsletter, there's an Axios newsletter, there's a Puck, there's a Semaphore, there's all these kind of straight down the middle, centrist, I would say bland political offerings. We're going to offer a morning newsletter with a take. It's going to have a take from me, from Peter. We're going to have breaking news in there from you and Swin and Andrew, our new team, and it's going to be destination coverage. It's going to be our flagship daily Zeteo newsletter. So I urge everyone who's not yet a subscriber to become a subscriber. It will be eventually only for paid subscribers. We're going to roll it out free at the beginning, and then it will be for our paid subscribers to get every morning what they need to know about the state of politics, especially in the US. So we're excited.
Lovely, lovely. And I see some very nice comments from Amy, Judy, and Harsh and others. I just want to say that, I'm glad that you appreciate everything we've done up to this point, but with the additions of people like Andrew and Swin and Peter and others to come as well, if you've liked what we've done now, you're going to love what's coming next. And I just want to reiterate that anything that we get to do is because of your support.
Yes.
The things that we're building, the vision that Mehdi just laid out to not only give you an alternative, but to actually compete with these bigger outlets and to punch above our weight is because of you all. And so just as much as we're hiring people and they're joining our team, you all are also a big part of this team. So I just want to personally say thank you for that. But Mehdi, you brought us to...
I'm
Go ahead.
I'm going to, just before you ask, I'm just going to be, you be the good cop, Prem. I'll be the bad cop and say, hey, I'm going to tell everyone off and say, if you're not a paid subscriber, become a paid subscriber, because I've said this before. A free press is not free. When we hire people from Rolling Stone magazine or wherever else we hire them from, we have to pay salaries. We have to offer health insurance. We have to do all the things that major media corporations do, but we can only do that with your support. We are not owned by some big corporation. We are not controlled by some right-wing billionaire. We are funded by you, the viewers, the readers, the subscribers. So please carry on supporting independent journalism. As Prem says, you are part of this as much as we are.
Yeah. And as you say, it's a free press that's funded by the people, a free press that is not getting $200 million by any random individual. I'm not referencing anything specifically, but you guys are helping us build a really strong, true independent free press. So we really appreciate it. But Mehdi, you were taking us to American politics, and yesterday, I'm sure many of you were watching as well, the U.S. Open, a fantastic match. Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, best of the best. I mean, I feel so lucky that we get to watch them. One interesting aspect of this was that the match was delayed by about 50-ish minutes, give or take, because our fearless leader, Donald Trump, was in attendance. And some of you might have noticed a few things, but one thing was towards the end, his reaction to Carlos Alcaraz winning was just so perfect. I'm surprised it stayed that long, but Carlos won. The crowd is ecstatic. I mean, because both players are amazing. We're so happy. The look on his face is just like so disenchanted, so disinterested. It's like he heard Carlos say vamos, and Trump is like, he said vamos. It's time for us to vamos. Like, it's time to get out of here. He did not seem excited at all. But I hate to do the imagine if thing, because it's just like the binder's too full at this point. But Donald Trump was there, which is whatever. Like, it's normal for a president to go to big, sports events in America, whatever. He was joined by Pam Bondi and I believe Steve Witkoff as well. Could you imagine, in the midst of anything, Merrick Garland randomly showing up at the U.S. Open? No less, let's say Merrick Garland happened to be implicated in helping Joe Biden cover up the Jeffrey Epstein files. Yeah. Or perhaps, 8 months ago, if Merrick Garland handed out a bunch of binders with the text on it that says Epstein files to a bunch of right-wing influencers that then smile and pose with the binders as if it's like an A+ assignment, not like a binder ostensibly full of horrific sexual abuse. Imagine all of that happening, and then Biden and Merrick Garland just pulling up to the U.S. Open, also as if nothing else in the world is happening. Well, I don't know. How do you feel about that? I know the question is trite and overdone, whatever, but it's also so insane.
As you know, Prem, I've done many of those tweets myself, the imagine if, and people can stop doing it. But it's the only way I can stay sane, right? Is to remind ourselves that there was some normal baseline that existed until January 20th, 2025. And yet Trump has just burned through it, blown across it, ripped it up. Yes, if we do the imagine if Obama did this, imagine if Biden did this, imagine if George W. Bush did this, not just Democrats. Like, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, no presidents have done what this guy did. I mean, returning to the scene of the alleged crime, 2 of the women, of the 24 women who have accused Donald Trump of sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, sexual assault, rape, etc., which he denies, 2 of those 24 women, I believe, say it happened at the US Open in New York. So the guy's going back to a place that should have really ended his political career, but it hasn't really ended his political career, and nothing he seems to do does do that. Look, the DOJ is a very important part of the Imagine If, because that was always something that even Republicans claim to care about. You remember, Prem, Loretta Lynch had a chat with Bill Clinton on an airport tarmac during the email investigation for Hillary Clinton. It was like, oh my God, this is so corrupt. What was said between these 2 people? Now we get to a stage where Donald Trump openly refers to the Attorney General as my guy, as my woman, as my person, as my favorite person. He said recently, well, I didn't authorize the Bolton raid, but I could have done. It's my thing if I want to do it. J.D. Vance did an interview where he said, we're looking into John Bolton. What do you mean we? You are not the DOJ. But they see the DOJ not as an independent judicial institution, law enforcement institution, but as an extension of the White House, as an extension of Trump and Vance. So that is very clear, and Pam Bondi is doing his bidding. And we've all seen those cabinet table meetings, Prem. We just had a 10 a.m. morning meeting of the team. And I'm very sad that the Zeteo team does not speak to me at our morning meetings the way that Donald Trump's cabinet speaks to him. Come on. Every boss wants that, don't they? No, they don't. It's disgusting. I don't know how those people like Pam Bondi go home and look at their husband or their kids in the eye, because the sycophancy is just disgusting. Witkoff and Bondi, the 2 people sitting next to him at the US Open, were 2 of the most sycophantic people in that most recent cabinet meeting. Witkoff said the Nobel Prize shouldn't exist if you don't get it. You're the most deserving person in history to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Bondi, I think, didn't Bondi once say in a previous cabinet meeting, Prem, something about he saved 300 million Americans or 500 million Americans from fentanyl? Yes. She's kind of made up a number out of the air. So these people are sycophants, and it is very dangerous, to make a serious point here. It is very dangerous if you don't have any kind of independence when it comes to your law enforcement. If the president is just picking enemies to go after for alleged mortgage fraud or for whatever else it is, you know, we are heading down that Banana Republic road. We are heading down that Hungary or Argentina road, where the president is going to decide interest rates, the president's going to decide who gets arrested, the president's going to decide all of these things.
Not to immediately butter you up after we were just making fun of buttering up your boss, but I think this answer kind of illustrates what you do in a lot of your answers, which is that your recall is very, very incredible to a lot of people.
The greatest answer ever given by a fossil fuel.
And JR from Substack, he asks very directly, what gives you the ability to keep all these names, these facts in your mind, and to then just deploy them out so rapidly as you do?
That's a great question. I did write a book about speaking, arguing, debating called Win Every Argument. In there, I do talk about the importance of preparation. It's not just about having a good memory. I do have a good, always a plug. I do have a good memory. Yes, I've had a good memory. I mean, as I get older and grayer, the memory fades. I used to be able to remember a lot more stuff. But a lot of it is preparation. A lot of it is I'm not, you know, when you see me go on a Piers Morgan or on a debate on stage or whatever it is, an interview with a politician, yes, it might look like I'm just throwing out from recall. But look, breaking news. Actually, sometimes I've prepared. Sometimes I suspect I know what topics are going to come up or what might be asked, and I come prepped with some data or quotes or relevance. I mean, I am obsessed with politics. I'm a nerd. So in that sense, you know, I do remember random things. I remember I have a friend whose birthday's on June the 5th. And I always say to them, oh yeah, 6-Day War, June the 5th, 1967. And they're like, it's my birthday. You don't have to make that about geopolitics as well. But like, that's how I remember things.
Yeah. Well, there you go. A little behind the scenes, behind the brain of Mehdi Hasan. Leopoldo Aguirre, sorry for totally butchering that name, but it's a beautiful name, I might add, Leopoldo, from YouTube. He asks if you see any, you know, we talk about the classic sort of contenders for 2028, your Pritzkers, your Shapirs, your Buttigieg's, and so on. Do you see any dark horse candidates for 2028?
I mean, the obvious dark horse candidate, someone I just wrote recently about for Zeteo, which is Jon Stewart, the Daily Show host, who I went on his podcast, sitting in this very studio, and I said to him, "Hey, John, you should run for president," and he just smiled. And he didn't say no. Normally you say, "Oh, don't be silly. I have no intentions." I said to John Legend, "You should run for the Senate," and he said, "No, of course not." Jon Stewart did not do the pro forma. No, that's not for me. He just smiled, and there was a glint in his eye. So I do think he's thinking about it. And the polling, Prem, shows he's at kind of 4%, which sounds low, but it's basically the equal of what Josh Shapiro and Pritzker and Whitmer are at, in the same margin of error. So I think Jon Stewart could be a very interesting dark horse candidate. I think he would definitely shake up the primaries. He has that charisma and energy that a lot of Democrats don't have. He has the ability to command media attention, which Donald Trump has so singularly monopolized for the last decade. So it would be someone who'd be able to go toe-to-toe with Trump, although Trump's technically not running in 2028, according to the Constitution. And then, there was a lot of talk. You wrote a piece for us, I think, last year about some of the candidates who are out there, especially on the progressive side. And Sean Fain, the union leader from Michigan, is another interesting UAW leader, I think it is, who auto worker union. He's been touted as someone who would be very interesting, working class candidate, someone who's outside of DC, isn't kind of mainstream politician, but does command a lot of support, does understand politics. That could be an interesting one. But yeah, dark horses nowadays, when we say dark horse candidates, we mean celebs. And I'll be honest, look, I just touted Jon Stewart, so I'm contradicting myself within moments, but I've never been a fan of celebs going into politics.
Yeah. It's interesting because, you lay out this rubric of people that like seem to have the chops to go like toe to toe with Trump or Vance or whoever it's going to be. But then there are people that we've talked about, like Chris Van Hollen, who like credential wise, I mean, god darn, you talk about someone who's like actually walked the walk. This guy has done trips to gulags. He went to the West Bank just now. He's been doing things.
I think Chris Van Hollen should 100% run, even if he doesn't win. Again, it's not about winning, right? It's about affecting. It's a conversation. It's about being on that stage. It's about dragging the party to where you want it to be. Bernie Sanders did not win in 2020. But let's be very clear. The Joe Biden agenda would have looked very different if Bernie Sanders had not run in 2020. He did manage to pull the party to the left on some domestic issues. He did have huge influence. Joe Biden has admitted this. So I do think if Van Hollen runs and starts talking about America's relationship with Israel, that will be important.
Yeah. And relatedly, speaking about like the conversation, narrative shifting, goalposts, and so on, Dakota Caller on both Substack and YouTube, thank you for tuning in, asks us what you think will happen with Democrats nationwide with the party if Zohran Mamdani does indeed win his race in New York in the 2 months now.
I think two things will happen. Number one, I think it will be a huge boost for the left, who will rightly say that you said we couldn't win. You said a candidate like this couldn't win. A candidate who is critical of Israel can't win in a city with a huge Jewish population. He just did with lots of Jewish votes. A candidate like this can't win in a city with Wall Street talking about rent freezes and going against the real estate industry. He just did. So there will be an argument from the left to say we should run more candidates like Mamdani who are authentic, who are charismatic, who are anti-establishment, who are willing to take on moneyed interests and corporations and the pro-Israel lobby, not just the financial lobby, and Wall Street, and there will be resistance to that. No one. Let's be clear, Prem. The Democratic Party establishment is not going to roll over for anyone. Not for Zohran Mamdani, not for Bernie Sanders, not for AOC. So I think you're also going to see kind of reaction and counter-reaction. And I think I'm very worried about the fact that people haven't quite worked out. And I hope to be speaking to Zohran Mamdani soon, doing an interview with him. One question I do want to ask him is he prepared for the shit that's going to come his way? I mean, you saw what happened to Jeremy Corbyn in the UK. He wasn't even in government. He was the leader of the opposition. There will be a concerted attempt by Republicans, by centrist Democrats, by the Bill Ackmans of this world. They're not just going to roll over on November the 4th and say, well, we gave it our best shot, but the people chose Mamdani. It's time now to let Mamdani do his thing. He has the endorsement. He has a mandate. No, they're going to say he's an illegitimate socialist interloper. He shouldn't be mayor. The Trump administration are going to try and talk shit about him being an immigrant and his citizenship. And they're going to do everything they can to deprive the city of funding, to deprive the city of law enforcement, to try and undermine his attempts to, improve daily lives for New Yorkers. He's running on an affordability agenda. And I think there's going to be a real campaign. Sorry to sound conspiratorial. I'm very anti-conspiracy theorist. But I do believe a shadowy group of powerful people will go out of their way, both Democrats and Republicans, to undermine him. Because, and Bernie Sanders said this at the weekend, what Mamdani poses is the threat of a good example. It's what the CIA used to say about Latin American countries that went left during the Cold War. We can't let them succeed. We must undermine Allende in Chile because we can't have a good example. We can't show the world that social democracy or socialism works. And therefore, there will be a concerted attempt to attack Mamdani. And I hope he's ready for the shit that's going to come his way.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why the premise of Bernie Sanders' candidacies, for example, are so important with regards to the context of American politics, which is that it's not just about the election and beating the establishment. It's the fact that once you have that movement, that has to sustain because people like Zohran, people like Bernie at his peak and so on, they don't have the support that every other politician has to just do what they want once they have this mandate. It is 100% true that exactly what you're describing will happen, which is that the powers that be that wanted him to lose the primary, that are currently trying to make him lose the election, even though he won the primary now, they're going to keep going. And so, as you say, it's going to be an ongoing challenge for him. So I'm curious to see how he's imagining that. I'm sure it's top of mind.
Oh, yeah.
One question that is asked by Chicken Daiquiri from Substack that aligns well with another question that I'll bring up. Chicken Daiquiri asks, mainstream media has become the Taco Bell of journalism. Cheap, quick, and lacking real substance. I might add, I mean, I take offense to that characterization. I love Taco Bell, but whatever. Neither here nor there. I get it. It's fair. With so many heartbreaking stories that are covered, what keeps you going and motivated to get through these long-term commitments to stories that take time to develop and follow up on?
It's a great question. And I think look, I've always enjoyed both fast food and journalism that is fast. But I do think there has to be a commitment to in-depth journalism. There has to be a commitment to long-form documentaries. There has to be a commitment to long-form interviews. Something we do at Zeteo, we do hour-long interviews. We don't just do 5-minute cable news interviews. When I was at MSNBC, one of the most frustrating things would be you're talking to someone really interesting or really powerful or someone you really want to ask more questions to, and it would be time to go to a break, time to wrap. And that was always an issue. And we don't have that issue now here on the Substack platform, on the YouTube platform with Zeteo. And I love that we can do longer interviews, more in-depth. I do appreciate impact though, right? I want to do interesting and off the grid and off the beaten track stuff, but I don't want to be fringe. I made that very clear. There's no value to being fringe. I'm not one of these people who go, oh yeah, everyone hates us and we're doing our own thing. No, I want a big audience. I want to reach the mainstream because I want to change the world, right? I want to have an impact on the world. I want the journalism we do to matter and change things for the better. And to do that, you have to reach the biggest possible audience. You have to reach the people in power. There's no point just being off in an echo chamber talking to a small group of people who already agree with you. So what keeps me going is impact. When we have impact, I take great pride in our work. Just last week, Jason Palladino, who's a freelance journalist, came to us with a pitch about how ICE had given a no-bid contract to a Republican donor with a past that isn't great. And he wrote the story about, you remember those trucks? I mean, you know more about the ICE story than I do, those trucks that they were doing like little, car ads for, these painted trucks in gold with ICE on them, parked outside like Washington monuments. And apparently that contract, Jason reported for us, was a no-bid contract. And we did that story, and, it's a very, you could say a narrow niche story. Not many people were going to read it. But actually, you know who did read it? Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, who have since launched an investigation and are asking ICE for more details about these contracts, and they are attributing that to the reporting that Zeteo did, that Jason did for us. So for me, having that impact, being able to change things, being able to try and change people's hearts and minds, yes, but also have people in power respond to our breaking stories, to our investigations, and to our opinions, yes, I think is important as well.
Yeah. Cheers to that. Katiel on YouTube has a similar question where they ask, if you have kids or around kids, how do you talk to them about Gaza? They say that their son has seen them visibly upset about the horrors and they don't know how to really breach the topic with them.
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. I certainly haven't found some easy solution when I talk to my kids. And my kids have obviously been seeing what's been happening in Gaza for 2 years, but also seeing what I've had to do in response to Gaza. I mean, my family were in the audience in Toronto when I debated Douglas Murray, and that crowd in Toronto were insane. They were kind of like a genocide-hungry crowd. They booed Oxfam. They cheered every time Douglas Murray talked about, supporting Israel's assault on Gaza. So it's hard when you see, especially here in the West, where not just you're watching the horrific images on your social media, but you're also surrounded by people, maybe it's in your workplace, maybe it's in your college, maybe it's in your school, who don't give a shit, or worse, actually support what you're seeing being done to Palestinians on your phones. It's really hard. And I think a lot of friendships have been broken, a lot of relationships have been ruined. I walk that same balancing act that every other parent walks. I tell my kids, you should care about this stuff, you should speak out for the truth, but you got to do it in a careful way. People are out to get you. I don't want you to do it in a way that makes you a target. So we're always worried about that as parents. We want our children to be outspoken. We want them to take strong moral stands. We're proud of them when they protest or they take interest in political activism. They take the right stance. On the other hand, nobody wants their kids to be doxxed. Nobody wants their kids to be threatened. No one wants their kids to be targeted. There are some vicious people out there going after students on campuses. Prem, you know this better than me. You've probably been the premier reporter on the issue of campus protests in the United States. You know how many lives have been ruined, how many careers have been prevented from starting, how many students have had death threats. And I think that's a real problem now. So we're walking that fine line between encouraging our kids to take this seriously and take a stand and learn the right lessons from this, but also do it in a way that doesn't expose themselves to harm, obviously. And in terms of what we're actually seeing coming out of Gaza, I mean, shocking imagery. And I'm torn on that one. On the one hand, you want people to see what is actually happening, unfiltered, uncensored. On the other hand, just watching images like that every day, that has a massive toll on people's mental, emotional health. There's no debate about that. So I don't know what the right or wrong answer to. I do think we shouldn't hide stuff from our children or sugarcoat what the world looks like. Those days have gone. When we were growing up, I mean, I'm older than you, Prem, much older, but when I was growing up in the 80s, 90s, if I didn't watch the nightly news, then I didn't know what was going on in the world, right? So as long as I didn't watch the 9 o'clock news on the BBC, I'm blissfully ignorant of a famine or an earthquake or a genocide. Today, that's not the case. You can't hide this stuff from your children because they know what's going on. So it's better to have the discussion with them.
I think that's exactly right. I think especially with TikTok, like it's going to show up on their screens, whether you prepare for it or not. And I think we have a good role model for this in certain respects, which is our dear friend Miss Rachel. Of course, like if Katia is referring to especially younger kids, there's this sense in which Miss Rachel gives this guidebook of how can you ground the horrors of the world in sort of first principles of humanity, of how you see one another in a way that is maybe a cousin of how you take a lesson from a children's book, something where you recognize and share humanity in a way that is both accessible but not trying to filter things out. And I think she gives us a good example of that.
She also is very good at showing a way forward, which is she's not just mourning for the children of Gaza, which she has done. She's not crying as she cried in an interview she did with me. She was very emotionally affected in that interview. She clearly cares a great deal as a human being, as a mother, as a Christian, as a children's teacher, but also elevating Palestinian voices. She didn't just sit back and cry and mourn. She also took action. She got little Raha to come on her show and do a show about a child who's had to lose limbs and live without their family. So I think that's also important. What can we do? Not just be sad and be angry, but what can we do to actually proactively amplify the voices of the victims?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I know we're running on time here. We have so many questions. We have a few more we'll try to get through very quickly. But thank you everyone for all this participation. Seriously, it's wonderful. And we'll keep doing this. So rest assured, you will get your question answered. If
Every
not today,
Monday,
soon.
11 a.m. Eastern.
That's right. That's right. One larger question here, and then a few quick ones just to close out. Evans Films Productions on YouTube asks if you think there will be actual consequences for elected officials who keep funding war crimes, or will this constantly be an exercise of just vote for your team next time and you'll feel better? And similarly, I think relatedly, just to get Valerie Passerini in here as well from YouTube, she asks if there's any possible way to move left with the Democratic Party, or must there be a third party for a vehicle for change?
Yeah, so let me deal with that one first. I think the third-party vehicle is right now, in the short term, a pipe dream. I don't want to poo-poo anyone's hopes, aspirations, dreams, but it's a long-term project. You want to build a third party in the United States, the way the system is set up, it's very difficult. And I had these arguments with a lot of people, as you know, including on this platform, when it came to the Green Party and Jill Stein at the last election. There were people telling me, no, she'll get 5%, and then they have to do matching funds, and 3% of the vote. She got 0.5% of the vote, even in the middle of a genocide, where she took a very strong, admirable anti-genocide stance. So I think, look, it's very difficult for a third party to cut through the way we have elections set up in this country, the way the two parties have dominated for centuries, the way you have the electoral college. It's just there's too many structural impediments. You want to build a third party, you have to start much smaller in terms of a local level and then work your way up. I actually think independents, as to go back to what we talked about earlier, have more chances than a third party, as it were, big name independents. But that is a problem, which means you have to work within the Democratic Party if you're on the left. That's what we're seeing with AOC. That's what we see with Mamdani. We see with Bernie, who has always been independent but aligned with the Democrats in the Senate and ran for the Democratic presidential nomination. In terms of the original question, the first question about accountability, I'm a cynical person. I think most people will get away with their support for the genocide. I think people are trying to rewrite history already. We always talk about the name of that Omar Akkad book, who I interviewed a few months ago. One day when this is all over, everyone will always be against this. I think people are going to reframe themselves as, oh, well, I called for a ceasefire. Yeah, 18 months in, you called for a ceasefire. You don't get a round of applause for that. A lot of Democrats were very late to this, getting on the right side of this. I would like to see some accountability, at least of some high-profile people. I would like to see someone primary Hakeem Jeffries. I would like to see Chuck Schumer be removed from his leadership in the Senate. I've called for that in a recent piece that I wrote for The Guardian. I would like to see some accountability. I think Mamdani winning is a form of accountability. Let's not forget, Andrew Cuomo was a lawyer for Benjamin Netanyahu. We don't talk about this enough. Even the left, even critics of Cuomo often say, well, sexual harassment, well, COVID cover-ups, in the list of things against Andrew Cuomo. I think the top of the list against Andrew Cuomo should be he volunteered to be a lawyer for Benjamin Netanyahu at the International Criminal Court. So him losing, I think, is a form of accountability in some ways, and I think we should stress that. Prem, you still with us, or we lost you? Not sure if we still have Prem. Bad Wi-Fi connection on a Monday morning. Can you hear me, Prem?
Count your wins, especially if you are on the left when it's so easy. I'm with you.
Maybe it's my connection. I was losing you. It's a good time to wrap up since one of our Wi-Fi is bad. All right. I think it's on Prem's end. So I'm going to say wrap this up. I was going to let Prem wrap this up.
Okay, good.
Conversation.
Good. You're here. You hear me?
I hear you. I'm going to wrap up for both of us because I think you're having Wi-Fi issues. But I'm going to thank everyone for joining us on this conversation. Prem and I are going to be doing this every week at 11 a.m. We'll be back with much better Wi-Fi next week. But please do keep asking your questions. Please do keep joining this chat. I do want to take your questions. I do want accountability within the media. As the editor of a media organization, I want to be able to take questions from our readers and subscribers. So we will be back here, Prem and I, next Monday at 11 a.m. And Prem, I think you're back to say goodbye.
I am back to say goodbye. So sorry, folks. Not sure what's happening. But very glad that we got to spend this time together. I'm sorry for the choppiness towards the end. Like Mehdi said, we will be doing this every Monday with much stronger Wi-Fi next time. And thank you again, seriously, for all the questions, all the interest, and most importantly, all the support. Again, we cannot do any of this without all of you. So thank you so much.
Please do become a paid subscriber to Zeteo if you're not already. And if you are already a paid Zeteo subscriber, thank you for allowing us to do what we do. Do consider donations. We just want to keep helping Zeteo grow and build and expand, hire more people, do more stories, have more impact. Can't do it without you. Thanks so much. Have a great week and check out all the content coming your way from Zeteo in your inbox.
Cheers, everyone.